Hi again, fellow unlicensed thinkers. There's a lot going on in the world today, and a lot of times we have a hard time with being alone, almost like we need there to be a lot going on, like we need to have an other or others to help make our day better, to help, in some cases, even to define us as who we are. Like, who am I without an other? Who am I without a group? And so that's what I want to talk about today, is the value of being single for long periods of time, this value of being alone for long periods of time, or even just when you have an opportunity, depending on your circumstances, of course. So before we get into that, again, I really can't reach that like button, so if you could go ahead and hit that and the subscribe button for me, because about half of my viewers are not subscribed, so please do that, and let's go ahead and get into this. We like to get into relationships, and when I say relationships, I do mean like getting together with a person, like a partner, or getting together with groups of people. In any case, those are relationships of some sort. And we have this built-in desire to please other people if they're around. We don't have that so much when they're not around, because they're not there. So this desire to please others causes us to, out of love, limit ourselves. And this isn't something like, well, I got together with that person and they limited me. That might happen. Sometimes we do limit the ones that we're with because we do have sort of these expectations of how they behave or how they have behaved in the past. So if you think, you're with somebody or you're with a group or whatever, and the words are said, don't you usually, or didn't you say, like, these are things that kind of pull you back into this old self and prevent you from growing. They kind of limit you. It's not really done out of any kind of animosity or desire to hold you back or anything. In fact, a lot of times it's done out of their concern for you, because, if you hear all the time, if somebody's changing their behaviors, God, they must be depressed, or there must be something going on with them. Well, that's not necessarily the case. They might just be growing. And you could instead say things like, oh, that's interesting to see you doing that now, or what brought this up, or something like that, that encourages them to continue moving in that direction, or to talk about why they're moving in that direction. So just something to think about. But it was when you're dealing with others, or when others are dealing with you, putting those limits on each other. But the real big problem is that we limit ourselves. And again, we do this out of love. We say, well, my significant other is going to expect me to get up in the morning, make coffee, have breakfast, whatever it might be. My group is going to expect me to be the party guy that goes out and is involved in every round of shots, or whatever it might be. There's this expectation that we put on ourselves, or that we see that others have of us, and so then we use that as a way to define ourselves, and we put that expectation on ourselves, or it's used as a way to pull us back into that person that we have been, as opposed to the person that we want to be, the person that we're growing into, the new habits that we might be picking up. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza. He does some great work. I think he works with the Heart Math Institute and stuff, and they do this great stuff. But Joe Dispenza, he talks specifically about the habit of being yourself. And he relates it to something a little different, but it works perfectly here. And I think he probably has at some point has talked about it related to this too. I don't know. I haven't seen that, but this is what I get out of it. So he talks about the habit of being self. You wake up, you think the same thoughts that you thought the previous day. You think the same thoughts that day as you did the day before that, and so on. And so you sort of, every time you wake up, every time you do anything, you reinforce this habit of who you are, who you're supposed to be, who you think you are, who you're expected to be, all this kind of stuff. And it's much easier to break these kind of habits when you're single or when you have a lot of alone time. And we don't really, again, things are a little different these days because of all the craziness that's going on this year, but we don't really get a lot of alone time, a lot of time being single. You see somebody break up with somebody and the first thing they want to do is start going out on dates again, start, finding the new person, trying to see, well, if that person didn't like me, maybe somebody else will like me. But you're really putting your self-worth, your identity, you're putting that onto other people. And number one, that's not fair to put onto other people. That's your freaking problem. That's not their problem. Your identity is not their problem. And so when you're doing that, when you're seeking identity through another or others, you're giving them a burden that they may not want. And that is to define who you are. And usually they don't seem to mind, but that is indeed what you're doing. And worst of all, of course, you're not getting your own identity. So you think about a lot of things that go on when you have more than one person. So what do you want to eat? Where do you want to eat? Okay, well, are you even hungry? I mean, if I have another person with me or if I'm with a group, they say, well, I'm going to go eat. I might say that I'm not really hungry. And yes, you can say that to another person, but a lot of times, again, you want to go back to that pleasing others. So this other person is hungry, so you're going to go and, well, since I'm at the restaurant anyways, I might as well eat. And then you're eating more than you want, and then you start feeling bad about yourself, and then, later that night, you're with your significant other or you're with your friends, and it's like, oh, well, what should we watch on TV? Or, what game should we play? Or whatever it might be. Maybe we should just read. Oh, but I thought you were going to do this with me. And, oh, but yeah, we should all hang out. If you're just reading, then you're by yourself. There's all these weird conversations that go on. So then you have to decide, do you want to be loud? Do you want to be quiet? Well, when you're by yourself, you get to make all of these decisions. You get to decide, am I hungry? Okay, what should I eat? And it's not a committee anymore. It's just you deciding, who am I? Who do I want to be? What do I want to have in this moment? And you really get to define for yourself who you are, not who you are in relation to the people that you keep dating or the people that you keep hanging out with. And I'm sure they're great people. I'm not getting down on them. Although you wouldn't be single if you were dating great people, but that's another topic. And even if you have a, say, compliant other or compliant group that, you say, I want to do this thing, and they always agree with you, you're still sort of looking for validation through them. So you're making these decisions, you're kind of getting some kind of a satisfaction by them saying yes, and them validating that your decisions are great, when you could be validating that yourself. If you want to think of it this way, you have a soulmate, and that soulmate, you can see them anytime you want. If you just look in a mirror, that is your soulmate. That is a beautiful person right there, right? The crazy thing about that is that you can even make your soulmate better when you think of it that way. You can improve your soulmate. You can say, how much better do I want my soulmate to be? If you try doing that with your group of friends or your partner, probably not going to go over so well. Like, hey, I'm going to make you better. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to punch you in the face. And so you have that soulmate, you have that perfect person, and you're with them all the time. And when you enjoy that person that you're with, you're never lonely. No matter how long you spend alone, the more you enjoy that person that you're with, the less lonely you are. And so another thing that happens here is you can't blame others. So when you're alone, you can't say, well, I had a bad time because of this. And you won't necessarily blame, but maybe you blame quietly. Maybe you just think it. Maybe you say it out loud. Maybe it's even just your subconscious mind that now is able to say, oh, well, I didn't have a good time because of these people. So in some way, you can kind of push that off onto others as to why you didn't have a good time, why whatever it was didn't live up to your expectations. And so that's something external, and that's a a responsibility that you're pushing on to others. You're pushing that externally, as opposed to taking that responsibility yourself and saying, I didn't have a good time because whatever. I was in a bad mood. I didn't find somebody to talk to. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I didn't, whatever the event might be. It could be just sitting down trying to find something to watch on TV. It could be finding the right book to read. It could be, doing whatever, cooking something. When you're alone, you no longer get to point externally. Any problem that comes about with your happiness is now your problem. And the fantastic part of that, of course, is that now you have the power over it. So when you realize that you had the power over you having a crappy time, you now have the power to have a good time. And so I don't spend all of my time alone. I love my alone time. I go out, I hang out with friends. I go out and do stuff. I don't do it super often because I don't have to. It's not a requirement. I enjoy spending time by myself, and it hasn't always been that way. Before I worked on myself, before I took that time to see who I was and to learn to take care of myself and to be happy with myself, I used to need to go out drinking. I needed to be around people all the time. I needed to date someone all the time. I needed to just do anything to distract myself from who I was, because I didn't like myself, and I needed to push that responsibility onto others. So if I was unhappy, I needed to be able to say, oh, well, that's because my partner was being a jerk that day, or whatever it might be. And so now I can't do that. Now I am alone, and I've taken that responsibility. And if I were to choose to go out and hang out with friends or to date someone, I am still taking responsibility for me. So if I go out with a friend, they might not have a good time where we are, but I usually do. I usually enjoy just the walking around or the observation of the environment, or even observing people not having a good time. So I always have a good time because I am responsible for who I am, for what I enjoy, and for what happiness I get out of a situation, what happiness I find in a situation. So consider that when you're spending a lot of time thinking about, oh, how am I going to find the next person to date? How am I going to find the something to do tonight with my friends? Consider that for a moment. Say, wait a second. I'm giving my power away to this external person, this external environment, in order for me to be happy, when I really should be able to just be happy. But the key to that is you must learn who you are, what you like, and then you can find that happiness wherever you may be and whoever you may be with. And as far as finding somebody, you're going to find the best person when you are your best person. So all these horrible people that didn't work out before as friends or as partners, that type of person won't even see you as a potential to date anymore. Like the same way that a shark doesn't really want to eat a human being. We're not its food. And so in much the same way, they won't recognize you as a potential partner, because they will still be seeking self in other, and you'll already be a complete person. Now you will have some people that'll try to prey on that, but so long as you don't need them, then you become somewhat immune to that. Usually those type of predators want to prey on somebody else because that somebody else is weak and that somebody else needs them. That somebody else requires them, and so they just go and they feed off that. So as you are more complete, as you are your own person, you'll have a lot less problems with the people that you hang out with as friends and the people that you decide to date. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. And again, be sure to hit subscribe, and like, and share the video.